Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
I don't know shit about fuck.
Are you fucking Canadian? I like sucking.
Come on, man. Legit bad podcast.
He has a legit bad.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
Whoa! Hey, how's it going?
Pass.
Welcome to Legit Bat. I'm Joe. Jen's here.
Hi.
Hi.
Pass.
I'm really liking that button today.
Pass.
It's so good. It works
You're
for
loving their
everything.
piss today.
I know.
Ow!
I never get enough sound clips in, so I have to.
No, it's super rare that you even use it.
I know.
I like sausage.
Have you seen my wiener?
I was just doing it before the show. I was just playing like every sound clip I have, and it was very fun. I forgot how fun it is.
Nice set of hooters you got there.
Of all kinds.
Kick ass.
Anyway, yeah, this is a show. Ben can't make it, and like we said in the Planet Retard report, he has a good excuse this time. He is moving, so he is excused for the night and probably for the week. I don't even know if we'll see him.
He's moving right down the street from us too. It's
Yeah.
awesome. We can do in-person shows all the time.
It'll be great, I'm sure.
Eh.
We'll wait and see.
No, it'll be great.
But I don't think we have anything up front. We rarely do. I don't have announcements because we are that exciting that we have announcements all the time. We got Shane from Inquiries of Our Realities and Jake Loco from Loco Listens on. Let me bring him in here. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Hey guys.
Hey,
Good to see
guys.
you again.
Hey, you
The
too.
long-awaited Dante show. So the last time we had Jake on, he did kind of an intro to it, and it was a Sunday night shit show. So we talked about all kinds of stuff. But I got interested in the Dante's Inferno thing because that was kind of like a thing Jake was into, and so I downloaded the audiobook, listened to the whole thing. It's fucking way over my head, and that's why I got these guys on to talk about it, because we were talking to Jake before the show about how it's just it was 15th century or 1500s or some shit, and it's just so the old English and the way that it was written was so, and I'm not into poetry at fucking all.
Yeah, there's a lot of Italian, and the
Yeah.
way that it's written is very I guess it could be sing-songy if you read it in the right way, but it's nothing like you would read now, especially in this TikTok world, this world of social media. You're not going to get Dante's Inferno if that's all you're listening to all day. So
But apparently there is visual representations of this too, which I'm down to find. If there's a good movie or even a documentary on it would be cool, so they could
they
explain
said
some
there's
shit.
a video game. I think the video game would be great because you get to live it firsthand
Yes,
in a way.
RPG style.
and get to have the firsthand experiences of Dante being in each circle of hell.
But I guess it's a classic, so if you've never read it or never even heard of it, fair enough, but go check it out. It's pretty interesting. We're going to attempt to break down the 7 levels of hell here. So Shane, let's start with you since you're first on my screen. Tell us where we can find your show and all that stuff.
If anybody wants to come listen to my show, Inquiries of Our Reality, I'm across all major streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, all that fun shit. If anybody wants to come and find me on the internet, just look me up on Linktree, which would be kind of a weird hyphenation, but it's LINK LINKTR.EE instead of the .com part, and / Inquiries of Our Reality podcast.
Nice. And Jake, where can we find your ass?
Right on. I'm at Loco Listens on Instagram. You can send me a little message there. I also started a Telegram group on my birthday called Loco Listeners. So you can go and post your funny memes there and hang out with us at Loco Listens Podcast, everywhere you can find it. And also, just want to mention this, Shane, my brother, we have a cool Swapcast about Dante's Inferno where we go through the entire plot. And you can find that on both of our channels, Inquiries of Our Reality and Loco Listens. So please go check it out. It was a fun time, brother. And I'm happy to be back with all of you today. It's going to be a blast. a hell of a
Hell yeah.
conversation.
Nice.
Well, I saw that you guys did that like right after we scheduled you to come on and do this. So I'm like, sorry you're talking about it so much. I'm sure it's old by now, but at least you're refreshed. You've done a whole show about it, so you can break it down for us ding dongs here who know nothing about this poetry stuff. So I know you did a bullet point thing, and I told you before I was actually kidding when I told you to do that, but I'm glad you did, because it's actually easier to digest, especially for me. So you said you're going to start out with a couple minute like breakdown of an overview, kind of like we did on the last show, and just kind of lay out the basis of it, and then we can go into each level or whatever that's called. So you guys start, go for it. Floor is yours.
Yeah, it's perfect to start for anyone who doesn't know Dante's Inferno at all, just to kind of get the basic plot line, and then we can dive deep into those specifics in a second. So with Dante, he woke up in the forest by himself. He was probably on a long ass bender, and he just woke up and realized that his life had gone to absolute shit. He had no girlfriend, he had nothing. He was exiled. So he decides to move towards paradise, which is where Beatrice is, and Beatrice is his true love that he's been separated from. So in order to get to Beatrice, he has to pass through hellfire. So Beatrice, being the great woman that she is, sent a spirit guide to accompany Dante, and that would be Virgil. So Virgil's Dante's spirit guide, who leads him through the 9 circles of hellfire. So one would be Limbo, where the virtuous pagans hang out. We have circle number 2, which is for the lustful, and they're caught in the storm. Number 3 would be Gluttony, and that is guarded by the 3-headed beast Cerberus. So we're going to talk about Christianity and mythology, which Dante did a great job of blending. So we have Greek, Roman classics in there as well. The 4th circle would be for greed, where there's an endless battle happening between those who have and those who have not. Very, very, very potent. We also have circle number 5, which is full of wrath. And that would be people who are getting a little violent, or they're sullen and they're depressed and they're kind of wasting their life away. And there's also this city of Dis, which is the capital of hell. Just think, and we can talk about this later, think about the Hollow Earth civilization. And this is where all the demons hang out underground. Or we also have the 7th hell, full of the violent. Those who are violent to each other, those who are self-destructive and suicidal. We have those that are violent towards God and blaspheming the church. And then we have those who are violent towards nature. So they're destroying the earth as we know it. Lastly, we have the last 2 circles, circle 8, which is all about fraudulence. So that's anyone who's being deceptive and tricking people, lying to them. And these people are tortured pretty bad by the demons. And then the very last level is where Satan himself is hanging out, and he's flapping his wings all the time, and that makes the bottom zone of hell very, very, very cold. So it's full of ice. Satan's stuck here with his 3 buddies, Judas, Brutus, and Cassius, who we can talk about later. So that's the basic overview of Dante's Inferno, and Dante and Virgil have to go through a long and arduous journey to descend down to this last level before they can go to the next section, which is Purgatory.
Yes, sir. Well, that's a great breakdown. Shane, do you have anything to add to that or any perspective on that?
I guess as we start going, I can just start throwing stuff into each level. But that was a good overview of just the general idea of going through all the different levels for sure.
Yeah, actually, you can just skip reading the book now, because that was about it.
That's the best part of the book.
Intermingled with dude crying a lot and passing out and stuff, which I guess if you're going through levels of hell, you might do. But he does seem like quite an emotional character. So you want to get into the first one? What's the first one, and what does that mean to you guys? I guess, despite what the book says, what does it mean personally to you guys?
I mean, if you want me to hop onto this one, he's first wandering through the woods, and then he comes upon an area where there's different animals that block his path. So then he finally gets to the door where he meets Virgil, which I always like to point out that they purposely make it so that it's connected to the real world rather than being like a mythical place. There's a literal door to get into it from the real world. And then the first thing he steps into seeing in there is a bunch of people that are following false flags. So they're doomed for the rest of eternity, basically following around a flag and getting swarmed by bees and a bunch of different insects. So, I mean, I feel like that relates to a lot of people, unfortunately, that there's a lot of people that follow false flags. So I definitely want to point that part out for sure. And the other part I wanted to throw in there too is that Virgil, the one that shows him how to get through hell, he wrote a book back in his time, which was also an epic poem, where he was talking about the different layers of the after or the underworld. But he was looking at it from the Greek perspective. So that's why a lot of the time he brings up a lot of different mythology, different things, is because he's purposely trying to connect their two stories. So that's another important part to throw in there.
Gotcha.
Right on, right on. Yeah. And it's pretty cool in this section when you talk about false flags. There are people who they're too neutral, like they're undecided. They won't be able to choose good or evil. They just remain right in the middle, and they're punished for that. They're forced to action because they're chased by these hornets and snakes. So they're forced to choose somewhere to go to and not just stand still in neutrality. You know, it's pretty cool.
And then he gets to basically his version of the River Styx, which is another cool connection between Greek mythology and then going into Dante's Inferno, of course, too.
Yeah, man. So when we have these these souls that are stuck in this beginning layer, they're waiting to be transported onto this river. So they're like the people waiting to get onto the boat, which will take them through this process. So they're not even in the beginning yet, and they're just hanging out, and it's already, they have a long journey to go on from this point. But eventually they will move on to this first area, which is called Limbo. And I'm sure you guys know Limbo is that in-between state between life and death. And this is where we find the virtuous pagans. And Shane, I know you love chatting about these virtuous pagans. I think we are all kindred spirits with these people. So how would we start with these virtuous pagans? Who are they?
Well, first of all, he likes to add in the part that in his idea of God, he wouldn't be torturing people that don't deserve it. So that's why he creates this layer. It's not like they're necessarily getting tortured. They're just kind of stuck in limbo forever. And this is where you'd find all the old Greek philosophers, like Plato. This is where Virgil's actually from. So I feel like it's the most relatable coming from somebody who's not like a heavy religious person, where this layer of hell doesn't actually seem like it would be that awful to be in, because you could perfect your arts within this layer and experience other people's philosophies within this layer. So it's not all bad. It's more like the eye of the storm, I guess you could say, in a way, where there's awful things coming in, and then this layer is just calm and subtle, and there's just a bunch of very intelligent people talking who were around before Christianity, and then after that is when it jumps back into all the crazy shit again.
Yeah. And Joe and Jen, do you guys, when we say virtuous pagans, like, do you think of anyone in particular? Like, do you have any people that you might associate that with?
I don't know. Is that talking about pagans that have good intentions and think they're doing something
Are
right?
these the people who, in the book, per the book, are good people, but they just denounce Jesus or don't accept Jesus, according to the book?
I was going to say, there's also people here before you get to the philosophers that are just people that hadn't been baptized, where they're not really necessarily suffering, but they're kind of just stuck in this area forever and they can't progress to the next part.
Isn't there a part where also they could accept Jesus and be moved? Is this that part, or is it the part before that?
I think this is partly that part, because I know that Virgil mentions a couple times that the reason why he's helping is also so that he can progress farther on. So I think it's one of those things that they're kind of stuck here, but if they're willing to do good deeds and they're willing to do things to progress to the next level, there's an opportunity to do so. So I'm assuming that it would be the same way if they denounce their...
Proper hell is like 2 through 9, right?
Yeah, it gets worse and worse as you go down. But yeah, this top area is... for people who may have had that decision to choose, you could say Christ or choose the church, but they decided not to, or they were just undecided, which is why neutrality is like a very, it's not like a terrible, terrible thing. And yet they're still punished for it because they were not able to choose light versus darkness. They were like somewhere in the middle, you could say. So when we get to this virtuous pagan section, Shane, who stands out to you? There's a lot of cool characters here.
I'll have to look at a list of it. It's been a hot minute since I read the book, but one other thing I did want to point out is that this layer of hell is described as a meadow with like a castle type thing in the middle. So even like visually speaking, it doesn't seem like that awful of a place compared to the rest of the layers. But let me see if I can get some offhand stuff. You want to take it away from me?
Yeah, man. So yeah. We got our good buddies, Plato, Socrates, Hippocrates, and like you said, it's a very beautiful area. It's not necessarily like what you would think of as hell. It's actually the only area where there's light. So this is where Dante takes note of the fact that there is light in some parts of this first circle, but beyond this point, Dante even points out that they're now entering into the kingdom of eternal night. So this is like the last little bit of hope before they go into absolute madness. And so yeah, we have Plato, Socrates, Hippocrates, and they are all hanging out basically. And there's a citadel of human reason, which is like, you could imagine like all us podcasters getting together to philosophize, and we have this like nice house that we can hang out in. This citadel, this compound that houses us and gives us this place to hang out and philosophize and share ideas. So that's kind of what they're doing down there. And Plato and Socrates, Hippocrates are the three that stand out to me. But I'm curious, Shane, what you had to say about the other pagans or the ones that have already been mentioned.
I mean, you covered most of them. I just wanted to include Virgil in there, of course, too, because he was an epic poet. And then there was also a reference where he says that the reason why he's writing this in the form of an epic poem is to try to relate to the greats, like Virgil, for example, who also wrote an epic poem in his time. So that's like another reference that there's also poets here, not just philosophers, but pretty much anybody that would have been considered a pagan or anybody that didn't accept Jesus, who had kindness in their heart and was intending to do good with their actions.
Yeah, man. And, let's start with the Hippocratic Oath, because like Hippocrates, I mean, people, have definitely come face to face with that Hippocratic Oath in this 2020 era. Like we're looking at the medical system kind of dealing with this new kind of darkness. And so what do you guys think? I mean, Joe and Jem, the Hippocratic Oath, above all else, do no harm. Where have you seen that in the last 2 years?
Yeah, with COVID stuff, I love that there's so many nurses and doctors standing up saying like, hey, we're not going to give the jabs out. I mean, that's what stands out to me. I mean, the people who aren't going to be sucked into the system, who say, hey, I do believe in this. I have something to believe in. I'm not going to be one of those neutral people in the first circle of hell or whatever. They do choose light,
I think there's going to be the majority of people in the first layer, because most people just don't know what the fuck's going on. And obviously, if you're looking at this from a Christian perspective, it would be anybody who isn't a Christian or hasn't accepted Jesus. So that is quite a lot of people if you're looking at it from that perspective. But
is there to be shoulder to shoulder nowadays?
But it's cool that circle even exists or in the book. But it's nice to know that, okay, this is the first circle of hell. Hell sounds awful, but hey, if you're just in this first layer, it's okay. You could still get out. There's, salvation for you yet.
Is there, just a quick aside, is there any like thoughts on Dante? Like, was this a vision he had? Was this an act, almost like the Revelation of John? Was this like a vision he had, or is he just writing a crazy ass poem?
What do you think, Shane?
He wrote it as fiction, but I don't know. There could be a lot of different thought to it, I guess, because this book's so old that there's no way we could really tell. And it got shunned upon in its time, and then later on, almost every volume of it got destroyed, and then somebody found a copy, and then they brought it back. So this book almost was lost in time to begin with. But yeah, I kind of feel like it's kind of two sides of the same stone. That, I mean, somebody could believe that a lot of this stuff could have theoretically happened, especially considering that a lot of these writers would purposely write things as fiction, even if they did believe them as true, because then they wouldn't be perceived as crazy, because it's just, they look like they're writing a book. Same with a lot of sci-fi writers. So, I mean, you go either way. It depends on your perspective.
Well, he had two more, right? Didn't he have the Purgatory and whatever?
So the whole series would be the Divine Comedy, and we're in the Inferno, and then we move into Purgatory, and then there's Paradise. And there's something on that to your question, Joe. Like, it seems to have this psychedelic journey theme to it, because someone pointed out to me, shout out to Slick Dissident, that'd be Gabe on YouTube. He's got really cool thought about purgatory, and how in a shamanic sense, or like if you're going through a ceremony, first you have to go through hellfire, and then you have to purge out your sins, your demons. That's purgatorio. And then after that, you can climb up to paradise, and that's like the whole process. Or it could be like Dante is having this crazy dream, and this angel leads him through a life review, and it's like, here's all the shit you've done, here's what you need to work on, and then if we keep on going up and up, you'll reach your girlfriend again in paradise. And so it almost
seems like David in the chat is talking about possibly describing the journey of soulmates, starting at the first layer, moving to the lower layers and back up again, and the layers are actually lifetimes on Earth. It almost seems like some Joseph Campbell hero's journey shit too, kind of a basic outline of that. But anyway, keep going with your thing because you were on a roll.
Yeah, Shane, do you want to say anything about Hippocrates, one of these first virtuous pagans?
You can take it away, man.
Sure. It's already been kind of stated, with the COVID era and everything, like doing no harm from a healing standpoint is something that I think our modern society can definitely work on, and treating the whole patient, if you will, like using a more holistic lens, which is probably what Hippocrates wanted when he was alive. But the other one that we can talk about is, and it's ironic too, because Dante and Virgil are underground, but Plato has the allegory of the cave. And that's a really cool story. It's the fact that someone could be stuck in the matrix, so to speak, and then they leave that cave and they go see the true light. And they're like, oh my God, I've been living in a cave this whole time. And they go back in and they try to warn all their buddies, like, hey, we're living in a fucking cave. Let's all leave. And they're so fed up with this conspiracy theorist that they fucking murder him. And that guy, he tried to wake everyone up, but there's
not any more applicable fucking allegory than Plato's cave for the time we're living in right now.
Literally.
Everybody's in the fucking cave. It's crazy.
Dude, all these guys too, all of them were pretty much shunned upon by their community for talking out about everything. So I mean, honestly, they're the conspiracy theories of their time, conspiracy theorists of their time before they actually had that title.
So we should just start calling our podcast fiction so that we don't look like crazy people. It's just like writing a book, right? It's just all fiction. It's just talking crazy shit.
To skip forward a bunch just for a second, that I know there's the 9 circles, but it's divided significantly more. It's like 24 or whatever. There's different levels of each circle, right?
Yeah, I got confused on that part.
So the deepest level before Satan is like the most corrupt, horrible people that are running our world right now. I could picture people when I was reading it. I could picture people that I could label as possibly being in that circle. And it was interesting because the violent aren't necessarily in there. It's tricky people. It's rich people. It's not people who are directly harming people right in front of your face. It's not those people. It's the most evil of the most evil. And that's what everyone, not us, but people are just looking up to them, like, praise Fauci and Biden's amazing. And all of our rulers are great. I order on Amazon all the time. Like, those are all the
harder, daddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait a minute. Hang on.
Govern me harder, daddy.
I have
No, I mean, you make a good point, though, because it's funny because he wrote this about a lot of politicians because, you couldn't write shit directly, but he got exiled from his city of Florence. So a lot of what he was writing about was particularly the politicians in his city. So I'm sure he purposely placed that where he did to prove a point to them.
Yeah, and you can certainly reimagine this whole story in the modern sense because there's a lot of old Italian figures or, ancient historical figures that people might not recognize today. But, we could rewrite the entire story and just put, the respective characters that we would recognize in these areas, and it would play out the same way. Yeah.
Well,
Dante's
I want to see
Inferno 2.0.
Yeah, I actually want to see that really bad. So I'm tasking you guys with rewriting it and putting a modern spin on it.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. That'll be
We'll
fun.
just get all the podcasters. We'll just play different levels. It'll work.
Yeah.
I'll play a role.
I think you can play Virgil. He's got the hair.
Oh, really? You've got the hair. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'd play a pagan. That's where I'd fit.
Oh, right. I could play Purgatory pretty well. I feel like we're all in Purgatory anyway. So,
Hey, maybe this
where
world
does
is
it go from there? I mean, well, Purgatory is. Am I confusing the first level with Purgatory? Because that sounds a lot like Purgatory.
Yeah, Limbo is like the waiting room, sort of like it's these people don't deserve to be punished so harshly as those, like Jen said, down at the way bottom who are being wrathful or deceptive. So they're kind of like stuck there, and who knows, they might eventually be pushed through to paradise, but for now they're just waiting there because they're not yet worthy, according to whomever decides.
So how does that differ from Purgatory then?
Purgatory is it's pretty interesting too. We can kind of skip ahead to this image that when Dante and Virgil leave hell and they they come out on the other side, everything is inverted. So like they're climbing down Satan's legs and then they exit and Satan's legs are now upside down. So if you can imagine like that Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they're on the boat and then they hit that vortex and then they go upside down, and it's like now
Oh,
the whole world is flipped upside down. So it's pretty cool. It's like now they're going up rather than down, basically, and
Now they're going
that's
up his butt.
purgatory. Up his butt. Yep. Around the corner is paradise.
Yep.
But yeah, man, after the limbo phase, there's the lustful phase, which is definitely a circle that I've spent some time in. Unfortunately, being locked up alone in my studio apartment during a fucking pandemic. I mean, it's kind of tough. So times have been tough, but you know, there's a lot to learn from this stage because there's a cool metaphor. These souls who are possessed by lust are caught in this storm, and they're being blown around left and right, up and down, and they're not grounded whatsoever. And we have this, this very terrifying scene where Dante is seeing ordinary people that he can relate to. It's like, wow, they were committing the sin of lust. Oh my God, so was I. And he can't take it, and he's so overwhelmed that he actually passes out. Or they say he swoons, which is a funny term to use. He's swooning, and he just passes out.
Isn't that a Canadian thing?
Sounds a little more fancy.
A Canadian would say sorry afterwards. I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry? I'm sorry I passed out. I'm so sorry.
Be sorry.
I'm sorry.
The other part I want to add into is that on this layer, whoever the person they were lustuous with is also strapped to them and being thrown around for all of eternity too. So it's kind of like, hey, you want to be lustuous with this person, now you're stuck with them.
Ultimate hell.
Constant reminder.
I was just trying to hit it and quit it. Damn.
Damn.
Oh, I hit that twice. Sorry. Giggity. Oh, I forgot you got that too.
I got like 10 sounds, but you know it worked.
Anyway, sorry, enough of the soundboard. All right, let's move on. What's the next one?
So we got the lustful, and Dante passes out, which is a quick point to note that he's not yet able to process all this, so he's still like so overwhelmed. So this will happen again and again, but just please note that we're all Dante going through this journey. So even though he can't handle it now, later on he gets stronger and stronger and more capable of dealing with these dark entities. So the next part is gluttony and greed. So circle 3 is gluttony, circle 4 is greed. They're very hand in hand. They have kind of a similar vibe to it. And Shane, when you think of these third and fourth circles, I mean, what comes up for you, man?
Refresh me. This is the one with the rocks, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Swamps.
Yep. The gluttonous are kind of like weighed down by these boulders, and it's like this heaviness of their hunger. And then the greed is like this endless battle between the haves and the have-nots, and they're going at it forever. There's never a winner or a loser. They're just going at it endlessly.
It's just a giant boulder, and they push it in the same direction. It doesn't go anywhere, but they put their full force into it for all of eternity, and it doesn't move.
Yeah, just like Sisyphus, right? Is that the guy?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Sisyphus?
Sisyphus.
And then this is the one you said with the swamp too, right?
Swamp. Okay. So that's it's very interesting. So the environment in the Inferno reflects these people's mental state, or the state in which they were living in on the earthly realm. So it's kind of cool that someone who is a filthy glutton, or they were consuming a lot of food and drink, and they were just kind of going crazy, end up living in their own filth. And that's it's a very it speaks to the Hermetic principles, like as above, so below, as within, so without. It's a pretty good form of justice, you could say, for these people.
I actually do remember that one from those long hours listening to the audiobook. Yeah, I remember that one, the gluttony one, where they're living in their own waste.
It's like sludge that they're
serves
just
you
constantly
right.
kind of surrounded by this gelatinous sludge.
The more they struggle, the farther they get pulled down into it. So there's some where just their face is above, and there's other ones where it's just their feet. So the more you struggle, just like quicksand, the farther you fall into your own shit.
Yeah, man.
So is this the one that's guarded by Cerberus?
Yes, the gluttons are guarded by Cerberus, and if you guys have seen like the first Harry Potter movie, there's that three-headed dog that's guarding the entrance to the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone, underneath Hogwarts. And and it's also cool. Like if we're talking about the modern day Dante's Inferno, watch the TV show Hoarders, because these people would be up to their necks in whatever shit they're keeping in their living room. It's
another cool shout out to Virgil too, with it being another mythology reference, having Cerberus.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly, because he does reference so much mythology, because Cerberus guarded Hades in mythology. And then so Virgil, I do have a question about this. So they got past Cerberus, because Virgil filled Cerberus's mouth with mud, right?
Yep.
So why?
Because he was just trying. He's trying to get something to eat, pretty much. So he just throws him a bunch of shit just as fillers, so it keeps him busy, so that they can walk past him. That's kind of the idea, because he doesn't really notice what's coming towards him. He just thinks it's food, so he's just being gluttonous in himself, just taking anything he possibly can in order to.
I was wondering if
satisfy
Cerberus
himself.
was being kind of punished in a way as well, as guarding,
interesting
also
thought.
being punished, because
Well, he's in hell,
a
so
dog,
probably.
we have a dog.
True.
I know it wouldn't just take mud down each of its throats. I think our dog has.
No, our
taken
dog
mud
would eat
sometimes.
mud on her own.
I don't know. I don't know.
Snacks?
She'd be like, "Yes, it's
Mouse,
delicious."
maybe?
Is there poop in it? Because I would definitely eat it. That's what they're
Yeah.
thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Getting
If it was
hints of
cat,
poop.
I would completely get it. I wouldn't even be asking a question.
Yeah, it's not mud. It's just cat turds. She's like,
Yeah,
yes.
there you go. They love that
Nice.
shit. It's like a treat. Speaking of that,
It's a
I got one
delicacy.
dog that'll go out of his way to do that shit.
Yeah.
Same.
It's a pretty shitty diet, you know.
We should just
Yeah.
call
Ah.
it Cerberus.
Yeah.
There's something else too on Cerberus. Like, it's kind of interesting because this area, whether it's the gluttons or the greedy, like, that's a problem of the appetite. And so Cerberus has 3 heads. He's got probably a pretty big stomach, so he's the perfect animal, the perfect beast to represent this, like, really, really hungry, this ravenous appetite that people have sometimes.
Probably shows that struggle too, because you almost see all those things in old cartoons and shit where they throw something to a 3-headed dragon and they're all trying to fight for the same piece of food. I'm
Right.
sure that was also supposed to be symbolic of that there's 3 heads fighting for the same piece of food.
Hmm.
That's like what chickens do.
Exactly. You're not wrong.
They do that
True,
every
true.
time. Anyway,
Every
so
time.
that was gluttony and greed. You guys have any other insightful comments on that?
Shane?
Oh, no, I think we covered that one pretty well, to be honest with you.
Cool. All right.
What's the next one?
The next one is pretty packed. So we have the wrathful, the violent, the sullen. So I would say, just to kind of point this out first, that, you know, people who are wrathful could also be considered angry, like they're possessed by rage. They just want to get revenge. They're just absolutely seeing red, you could say. And you know, so some of them are violent, and you know, that's when this first theme of violence comes about. But particularly, they're just resentful. They may not be actually hurting people, but maybe they're like passive aggressive, and they're kind of like making everyone's life hell. But they're not actually like throwing punches, you know. And the other thing is that there's the sullen. So these are people who are so resentful, but they don't know how to deal with it. So they kind of just shut down, and they're so depressed, and they're weighed down by this total, you know, this internalized rage. So that's where a lot of these souls end up, in this 5th circle. But there's also the capital city of hell, Dis. I mean, DC, like, what is going on here? Anyways, city of Dis. This is the threshold of Virgil's power. So, as you mentioned, Jen, like, Virgil was able to protect Dante. Like, these beasts, these demons were trying to get him. They're trying to stop him. And Virgil is able to outsmart them, or to trick them, and so they could pass through. But here at the capital of hell, Dis, Virgil doesn't really have any power, so they have to rely on a heavenly messenger to come and save them. So Shane, do you want to tell us a little bit about what happens in this 5th circle?
This is part with Beatrice, right? Where she pops up for the first time.
Not perhaps. I may be blanking on this, but I do know that a different angel comes down to kind of save them. But
like I said, it's been a hot minute since I read this book. The last time I did that review was with you, so you kind of like stepped each part through,
Okay.
and I just kind of threw my input in. So
gotcha. Let me give you a little more to work with then. Yeah. So first of all, like, the city of Dis is there's a giant tower. So you can think of like the tarot card, like the tower card. It's this you know, this structure forming a hierarchy, and this is where basically the leadership of hell is dealt out. So like, all the demons are receiving their orders, who to punish, where to go, and what to do. So it's a cool interesting that there's like even a political spectrum, or there's a political hierarchy down here in the Inferno. It's also cool to know
a political hierarchy in hell. That is hell.
itself. That is hell. Exactly. Right on.
So really
Pretty
quick, I
funny
do just want to say it's super interesting that in hell, whether you're wrathful, sullen, or violent, there is a punishment for it. But here on earth, you only get punished if you're violent. You don't get punished if you're sullen or wrathful. If you're just kind of a vindictive person in your head, there's nothing. There's no punishment, but there is a punishment for your soul in hell that's exactly the same as being violent. I don't know. I just think that's interesting that you don't have to throw punches or do anything outright, but you still get punished the same way. It's just interesting. They wrap them all in the same little bunch.
Yeah.
Making a connection to society too. I mean, if you're one of those people that believes that the whole government's ruled by satanic means, I mean, that could be purposeful, where they're only trying to judge certain things because they're trying to get other people on some other shit that they didn't even know they're going to end up in hell for. That's the dawn of government. It comes from hell, of course. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, it was one of Satan's best ideas. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's
there's
still
something else
running
to
it.
that, Jen. Yeah. I mean, there's a great reason that you brought up, Jen, why violence is above fraud. Because, like, if you're there's something honest about violence. Like, if someone's attacking you, then it's like, all right, they're being pretty honest. Like, they're not hiding anything. But when someone is deceptive and they're lying to you, I mean, that's so much worse, because it's almost like it's more of a betrayal rather than just being attacked. But
It's violence, but in a different way, though, because I mean, like, Julius Caesar got betrayed by his own people and essentially got stabbed in the back. So hence where the
Right.
term came from. So I mean, it's almost worse to be more deceptive than to just be outright violent, because it is definitely more truthful to be outright violent, because you don't know who you can trust if everybody's pretending to be truthful and then they turn around and stab you in the back. And that's what a lot of politicians, and I'm sure a lot of people, are scared of. And I'm sure not Virgil, but Dante was scared of that, because essentially that's kind of what happened to him in his own city, was that he got stabbed in the back and pushed out because I don't remember exactly what was supposed to happen, but they pretty much tricked him into kind of falling into a certain place in the government, and then they purposely used that against him to be able to exile him from the city, because they were trying to set him up because they didn't like how much control he actually was able to get over the people.
+1 for cancel culture.
Sorry, I dropped out for a second. I had to go pee and also wipe chicken shit off of my shoes that I realized was there after I got in here. Sorry about that.
Did your dog eat it?
Yeah, just call the dog in. He'll be good.
We did have a request from Johnny in the chat to play lots of fart noises. So real quick interlude. There you go, buddy. All right, continue on with your
glorious. Glorious. Okay. So before Dante and Virgil can pass through this fifth circle, they have to call on a higher power. So this heavenly messenger comes down, someone who's not really named in particular, but I'm just going to imagine them as this badass angel with a sword that comes down, doesn't say a damn word, and just creates this large thunderous boom that scares all these demons guarding this capital city. And they all run away, they all scatter, and they open up the door so that Dante and Virgil can pass through. So it's almost like, it's pretty cool that Virgil himself doesn't have this kind of power. He's just a humble poet. And up until this point, Virgil was using mostly language and mud, as we mentioned earlier, to pass through these demons. Like, he's using words to overpower them. But here, that power kind of runs dry because we're in the area of the wrathful. So you have to deal with them by different means. So he calls on this heavenly messenger who's able to kind of like strike fear into these demons and persuade them to understand that Virgil and Dante are guided by a much more powerful force. Like, you could say it's light always beats darkness no matter what, and this is kind of a good allegory for that kind of scenario. So that is the end of the fifth circle, and now Dante and Virgil are flying down to the last three circles. Number 7, violence. Those that are self-destructive are also those who are suicidal. And let's talk about those people first, because what's happening with those who are suicidal, those who are self-destructive, is that they're trapped in a tree. And we're imagining like a very thorny tree. It's not a good place to be stuck in.
I think I sent you a picture of this, Joe, if you want to bring it up. Where it's like the people as the
I
trees.
imagine any tree is probably not great to be stuck in.
Any tree, yeah. I mean, I can think of a couple trees that might be okay, but any tree over.
Then they get burned too. That's the other part you got to add to. It's almost like they're planting their roots for all of eternity. So I feel like that's also partly a metaphor. And then they get burned because of their choice to just plant their roots where they were.
Right. Yeah, man. Anyone who chooses to end their own life. I mean, I couldn't make a blanket statement about everyone, but it's in this story, it would be the allegory of those, like Shane said, people who had potential to move on to do greater and better things, but decided to take root where they were at that present moment, and then they would never be able to move on from that point. And it's a very dark image, but it's one that Dante has to look at, because I mean, I'm sure at one point, being a victim of cancel culture and losing his girlfriend and just losing everything, basically, he's probably like, well, damn, I mean, what's the whole point, right? Like, it's probably something that could drive him into nihilism. But that's why Virgil's so important, because whenever Dante wants to give up and turn around, Virgil's like, we have to finish this. Like, you cannot turn around. We're going all the way.
Wipe your tears and move on, buddy.
Yeah, man.
I want to add something too about Beatrice too. Actually, in real life, Dante had a wife, and he admired this other girl from afar, and he never got to actually be with her, and they never really lined up in life to ever be together. But he wrote all of his poems about this girl specifically, referenced her in this book, but he never talked about his actual real wife. So at no point was he ever actually with this girl.
So what level of hell is Dante in then?
Should
Would
be
that
in
Probably why he
lustrous.
passed out in the lust. He was like, "Oh, this is me," and then he passed out.
Could be.
There's
yeah.
a girl that tells him a story too about how it's her and her lover, and they were poisoned by the king because she was cheating with this other guy. And right after he hears that story, he kind of like passes out. So I think he did that on purpose to say that it was extremely relatable to him, that he always was fantasizing about this girl he could never have.
And they were not repentant about it, right? They just tried to justify it the whole time. I remember that part of the story. Where they were just like, no, it's totally cool. This is why we did this. Don't you understand?
Yeah, we're the true lovers here, and now we're stuck for this for all of eternity. But again, that's you're probably again trying to make a point, trying to be symbolic of the fact that he deeply did love her, but he was forced to be with his wife, because I think there was arranged marriages back then, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be, yeah.
There was weird shit going on in that time period, if we can believe history, but that's a different show.
Different show. We should definitely do it though. So we've got violence against the self. You know, it's something that is pretty potent. And there's also a great section where those who are violent towards God and nature are stuck in this desert realm with very, very hot sand. And of course, it's very dry. It's not really a place that's fertile. So like nothing can really grow there. And it's the fact that people who are damaging the planet willy-nilly and not really considering like, how is the soil going to respond? How are we going to grow more food? What is going to be the consequence of this or that? And so that creates literally an infertile area. And that's what these people are stuck in. It's not like they're going to receive any sort of sustenance in this place, or they're not going to be able to have anything grow whatsoever. So they're like stuck in a very barren landscape. And it's definitely, when you think of like a prison, like hell being this prison, then this is a great imagery for people who were kind of like careless about their home and where they're from.
It's where all the CEOs and stuff would be. All the politicians be in the other layer. This is all the CEOs of all the big corporations. They'd all be stuck in this layer.
Yeah,
all
man.
the private jet motherfuckers.
Right. All the people who are like, can I just dump all our waste in this lake that people swim in? Is that cool?
Yeah, we're gonna recycle this stuff by just putting it in the ocean for now. We'll figure it out later.
Right. Yeah. We'll figure it out later.
You're in Michigan, so I used to live in Indiana, right by Michigan, and in Chicago there was a huge company that just decided to dump all of their waste into Lake Michigan, where people swim in all the time. And they were like, oh well, the waste is under this certain parts per million, so it's completely fine. But they were dumping waste.
The parts per million thing drives me nuts. Like the parts per million of arsenic in your water is fine. It's like, it's still fucking arsenic.
Right.
Is that okay?
Speaking of that, there was just a story that came out in St. Clair Shores, which is a couple cities over from me, and there's just a bunch of dead fish found in the waterway. So it's like, I wonder what somebody put in the fucking water. Why is there hundreds of dead fucking fish all in one area? That doesn't just normally happen.
Yikes, guys, this is the beginning of the Simpsons movie. First, the lake is polluted, and then they drop the fucking dome over everyone. They can't go anywhere.
Except the dome is the planet, and they already have it. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so, the seventh circle, I think we've hit a pretty good amount of it. Is there anything else we can add, Shane? There's quite a lot there, so I don't want to skip over anything juicy.
Hey, I feel like we're just trying to leave it at a basic, digestible way of thinking. So, I mean, not going too crazy deep. I think we're hitting it pretty good.
Let's not overwhelm anyone.
Yeah, exactly. You
I
got to
was
make
sure
it
overwhelmed.
fun still, because this is a legit bet.
Yes, we're having fun. Yeah. So number 8, we got the people who are fraudulent, and there's something cool here. We can talk about reptilians for a second, those good old reptile friends, and those who were deceitful or were dishonest or who were thieves could be thrown into a pit of snakes, and that's terrible in and of itself. And if anyone has seen the show Vikings, where Ragnar Lothbrok is executed, that's how he goes out, is he's dropped in a pit of snakes. And
oh, fuck that,
yeah. They used to call me Jake Watersnake, and I never really liked that name. It's like, is that like a nice thing to call someone? I don't know.
Depends on which way you're looking at it. Snakes are also the symbol of wisdom.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
But as far as so 3D reality goes, I don't want to see one snake, let alone a pit of snakes that I am inside of. So no.
Yeah, I think 0 is okay for me. Yeah.
Yes.
Say I'm good on the snake pits. They get more pissed off the more compact you get them together too. So yeah.
Yeah, they get very angry. Yeah.
What do they do to him before they drop him in the pit? Don't they like cut open his back and stuff like that?
Yeah,
too?
Ragnar's like crucified before he's actually dropped in. Like, and but he gives an epic speech in the TV show, like before he goes down. I mean, he dies like a hero.
Blood Eagle episode?
No, but that's another crazy episode. No.
That was the one dude who tried to take over his kingdom, and then when he came back, he shut him back down, and then he did the Blood Eagle to him.
Ugh.
That's definitely some eighth circle punishment, though. Like that dude would be in the right spot for sure. And the other thing is, not only are people dropped in a pit of snakes, but then they turn into reptiles themselves. So it's like, all right, think about this. I mean, you ever see like Godzilla versus King Kong? Because like the whole idea is like, we all want to root for the monkey because that's who we can relate to more. I mean, we don't really see ourselves as reptiles, so to speak. But King Kong is someone we can relate to a bit more. But the whole idea is that we are part mammal and part reptile. And this reptilian part of our brain is really concerned with just surviving at any cost. It has no empathy whatsoever. So the fact that people are transformed into snakes is pretty interesting because it's like their reptilian side is becoming their total identity. They're no longer able to be human because they're so possessed by this need to like deceive people. So it's like they're losing that monkeyness that keeps them so lovable. Instead, they're total Godzilla. They're just a destructive reptile that has no redeeming quality whatsoever.
Maybe Dante just knew about the reptilians. And he was trying to tell us a couple hundred years prior to David Icke.
maybe. And there's a really cool mention too. You know, I won't go too much into this, but when I was talking to Emmanuel Kingman on the Godcast, we brought up this one quote where Dante mentions reptilians and Tartarus in one line, talking about how the people of Tartary were good at weaving. So if you want to get into like Tartaria and the reptiles, I mean, this section of the book brings up both at the same time, and that's a whole other rabbit hole, whole nother show, but just something worth mentioning because I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, I didn't even make that connection either. Like I said, maybe he was actually onto something more than we even realized because there's so much shit hidden metaphor in this book.
Yeah, man.
He was working with the politicians. I mean, shit, that would have been the ruling class that we still called the reptilians.
Are we in a psyop? Shit.
Yeah.
So,
they're on to us. We're going to start getting technical issues.
They're on. Yep. So it's bringing us to the home stretch, but in reality, this is far from the end of their journey, but they're at the 9th circle, this bottom layer full of ice. Satan is down there hanging out with Judas, who betrayed Jesus, and we have Brutus and Cassius, who betrayed Caesar. And Satan, what about him?
Oh, so my boy Satan's
my boy, down there, yeah. Chilling. He's chilling down there, yeah, and he's literally chilling. He's like frozen. Yep. He's able to flap his nice wings, but he can't move anywhere. He's literally chilling way too hard. He's absolutely frozen down there.
Literally chilling, yeah.
Literally.
Literal sense of when hell freezes over. It already has, man.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yep. So this is the last challenge really for Virgil and Dante, just in this first book before they go into Purgatory, where they have to climb down Satan's legs. And you know, I'm sure it's not a nice place to be. You know, they're climbing down to his feet, and then they see the exit. They're like, holy shit, we finally made it. And they come out the other side. But as I mentioned earlier, Satan's feet are now upside down. So they're like looking up at the soles of his feet. So the entire world has flipped, and now they're in the Purgatory realm. But there's one last thing I want to mention because in this infernal realm, before we move into purgatory, it's cool to point out that when we were with Plato, Socrates, and Hippocrates in that first circle, there was light there. And then from this whole journey onward, there was zero light whatsoever. It was a very dark, dark area. And now when Dante and Virgil re-emerge into the new realm, they can see light again, and they can see the starry sky, and it happens to be Easter Sunday. So the whole story allegedly is that Dante entered hell on Good Friday, just like, Christ is crucified, and then he's resurrected back into the next stage on Easter Sunday, and that's when he and Virgil re-emerge. So it's a pretty cool ending. It's very poetic as well, because I was kind of reading through this right before Easter hit, so I was like, wow, okay, this is pretty interesting.
Wow. So that
imagine
that
how weird
goes
it'd
on
be
from
climbing
there,
down
though.
Satan's legs.
Crawling down and then up. They talk about it being like a pull switch, right? Because he talks about the world. He's like, no, we're on the other side of the world now, because Dante gets confused and he's like, no, we're going back down. And he gets freaked out. He is probably almost about to pass out. And Virgil's like, no, don't pass out, bitch. Come on, just keep going.
Yeah, he's like, hang on, we're almost there. Yeah.
So is that where that ends, though? And then it goes into his next book, Purgatory, and then the next one, Paradise? Because I'm going to have to download these two then and maybe do separate shows on all those, because I'm sure there's interesting stuff in all of them. I would have to really sit down and listen so I could absorb,
So
Yeah, I can
definitely
say
wanna
this,
go back
Joe,
through
yeah.
all that stuff too, so I can be a little bit more help. It's been a hot minute since I read those
that's
stuff.
right. This has been fun.
I just finished the
Yeah.
audiobook like 3 days ago, and I'm still lost. So that's why I'm glad you guys are here with your
Dude, I
book.
had
If
to
anyone's
read
listening
it.
and they want to dive in, I would recommend getting some kind of commentary, because like after every line, I would have to look down and be like, all right, what the fuck did I just read? Because like otherwise, I'd be totally lost too. Yeah, so getting
Yeah, that's what we were talking about
footnotes
before
or
the show.
any-
There's all these references to like Italians and stuff, and I don't know if you're supposed to know who these people are, but they're like blah 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 and blah 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 in
They have
this.
a lot of Italian phrases that mean certain things, and
Yeah.
it's very powerful in the story. And if you don't know what you're reading, it loses
Goes right
all
over
of
your
it.
Western
Yeah,
brain.
you miss the
Yeah.
whole point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Have
I
you guys
honestly
actually-
I've never read Purgatory or Paradise, but I want to speak a little bit on Purgatory if we have time, like a brief little kind of side tangent on that. But I will say this before I start, that the Inferno and Purgatory are probably the two most important to focus on, because we could all imagine Paradise in our own particular way, but like everyone will go through that dark night of the soul, or that Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, where you go to rock bottom and then you have to climb up this mountain of purgatory. So that's what purgatory literally is. It's a mountain island that, you start on the very bottom and they have to climb all the way up and face all these different challenges, moving closer and closer up to paradise. And I'm instantly reminded of the TV show Lost, because that's kind of like same idea. There's an island that is sort of acting like purgatory. And sorry, this is not really a spoiler, guys. Like, it's been years. Like, come on. But
Yeah.
anyway,
If you haven't seen it yet, fuck off.
Yeah. It's the same idea. I mean, all these people who crashed onto this island are stuck there until they're able to, get over their bullshit. So that's where Dante and Virgil go next. And it's pretty cool because we have 9 circles of hell, and Joe projected that the cool image earlier. It's like a cone shaped. And now
Super
with this
detailed too, if you look at it up close, there's like each little depiction in each layer. It's a really cool picture.
Yeah, it's beautiful painting. Yeah.
Find it again.
Let's do it.
See, I don't know if you guys have seen what the hell is the last Da Vinci Code, the third one, but he like tears apart that particular picture to try to get to the next step, because that one's all based on like semi Dante's Inferno type concepts. That one's pretty cool. I think it's called like Demons and Angels or something like that.
Okay, it's like Angels and Demons, but there's one that came out in 2020. I was just talking about this with Jay Henahan on how to kill a sacred cow. Shout out to you, Jay. That was a podcast I did on my birthday. Love you, brother. That was I think he called it Inferno. It was like Dan Brown called the book Inferno. I'm gonna Google it really quick, but yeah,
I think that's what it is.
It's a very low res image of this one.
Was that the one I sent you, or is that a different one? Oh yeah, you might have to look up
I
particularly HD or something.
Different one.
No, I couldn't get into hang on, let's do this one. I couldn't get into the Instagram on my computer for some reason. It logged me out, so I'll have to do that later. But all right. Oh, so academic edition. Oh, okay.
This one's not as dark and fun. I know that there's a basic Google image though. It has like a has like a magnifying glass over one particular part, and then you can see how much detail is in that one picture. You click on that top one, it might be one of the ones that shows up that's similar to that one, because I think that's how I found it. The very first picture you clicked on. Next one over.
This one.
Yep, that one. And then is there like the little similar images at the bottom of that one?
Oh, I don't know. Like this one?
There's one with the magnifying glass. I think it's the exact picture, and it shows a zoomed in spot on it. Oh, it was just up, I swear.
Hang on.
Yeah, say go back to the last one.
I'm used to doing Google Images on my phone.
There it is. See that one with the magnifying glass? Yep.
There you
I'll
go.
kind of show you just how detailed that picture really is.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it still is pretty. Is this like an original fucking picture?
It might be. That's the oldest painting and the first like depiction of Inferno. That was the very first one I know of in existence. So it's a very old, very detailed picture.
Yeah, they all have shitty fucking quality on them. I don't know.
They sell posters. A lot of those might be like poster ads, or they're purposely not trying to do it high resolution until you buy the poster.
You gotta buy it. Yeah, it says 269 by 87. Fuck off. Terrible. Anyway, yeah, go look up pictures of this in 9 Layers of Hell. Interesting.
Yeah, if anybody looks it up, you could probably find a pretty good picture of it, and at least kind of get an idea of just how detailed it is. Pretty sweet picture.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right on.
I want to know,
Hey guys, anything to wrap up on this or what? Like, I mean,
yeah, Shane, you brought up
my brain
Dan Brown. He actually wrote Inferno, and it's got a picture of Dante on the cover. It's like perfect. I'm glad that you brought it up. I kind of forgot about it. That was released very recently. I think it was in 2020.
Yeah, was it? I would say yeah, because then that other movie came out like 2019 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of references though to Dante's Inferno through a lot of shit, but weirdly enough, like Joe was saying, you can't get a decent movie. The only one they made, it was like an old black and white movie where the words would pop up on the screen in between each layer, and it looked like, I mean, it's worth watching, but it's not anything close to what you'd find today. And even the game, like the game's cool, but it kind of just uses the area, but it isn't Dante or Virgil or anything like that. So it's like a whole different offshoot
adaptation. Yeah,
I'm surprised like Night Shyamalama Ding Dong hasn't made one like with at the end or anything.
He's got to be working on it now. I mean, what else is he doing?
$1 million idea. We all need to hop on that shit, but it'd probably get shut down pretty damn quick because we'd actually had real people in it.
And real ideas.
We'll be down there ourselves for that.
Yeah, we'll all be chilling in Limbo though, so that's not too awful.
Yeah,
podcasters in Limbo.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to all do the Purgatory next. We can do this one at a time to keep my brain sane. We'll do Purgatory next, and then if you want to, at that point, do Paradise. But since there's a continuation to this, I mean, I think we all get kind of the idea of the whole. You're fucked if you go to the 9th level. That's kind of sucks, and you got to crawl up Satan's butt, and then maybe get back up. But who knows?
Oh, something I forgot to add is that this whole poem is written in it's called Terra Miza, if I'm not mistaken, Teramiza, which is like a back and forth where you do like A, B, A, B, A, B, and then you end at the end, and then you start back off, and the last character continued back at the beginning again, as far as like the line rhyme scheme goes. So it was like a really hard method to write in, and the only I know that the Odyssey was written in this method, and then there was a couple other poems. There was Virgil's poem that was written in it, but it's like the epic poem hard way of writing where it's like a really difficult rhyme scheme. So just the fact that he was able to rhyme that much shit for that long, making this full ass book, is pretty crazy if you really think about it.
I mean, they had so much more time back then. So much more time.
Yeah, you got no TV. You're just sitting here fucking writing for days and days on end.
I mean, I assume they were trying to just live and not get scurvy or whatever they got back then, but
I think they had a lot less influence from, I feel like back in the day, so if history is real, they had so much less influence. There was, I think we are now living in a time where they're like, oh, okay, all of your prior generations, we've had lots of practice. Here's TV, here's a tablet in your face all the time, here's social media, because they know how to control us now.
I heard something the other day that I thought was pretty accurate. It pretty much said it's not a problem nowadays to get information, but it takes a special type of people to be able to sort through all that much information and find the truth within it. And that's kind of what all of us are doing here.
Exactly. There's no shortage of info, but trying to figure out what is legitimate is a different story. Takes time.
It's
Time that
hard.
we apparently have.
So it's funny because the people who are in the middle that are described in this book, it's hard because I do talk about that all the time. I want to be in the middle because I want to take time to dissect the information that I'm being given. I'm not saying, oh, I'm just wishy-washy. I'm in the middle. I'm just going to go to the first little circle of hell or whatever. I'm not trying to not make a choice, but it's hard because you can't necessarily pick a side when it comes to certain things because it's very, very, very unclear. Apparently, in this time when this book was written, they didn't have, social media and all of those people.
It makes me think
they're
they are trying to like force us into this first layer, at least trying to confuse everybody so much that you end up being in the limbo of like, I don't know what.
Meanwhile,
anything is.
their asses are going to end up in the 8th layer. Like, I'm cool with the first.
I think they know that too, though. I'm pretty sure they know that.
Hey, if all of us are in that layer, though, we can just stop following the flag. Who's forcing us? We can all just flip back on them.
Yeah, they also know that they can just climb up Satan's legs and be cool. So
you got to get to the taint first.
I was going to say, I don't feel like you're totally neutral, too, because I always say that you have to be in the middle in order to understand both sides. But if a grand fight came up, you would know which side to pick because you sat in the middle and started to understand both sides. So it may not fully pertain because if the fight came up, I feel you'd know which side you'd need to be on because you'd have an understanding of both sides.
Yeah, for sure. I just that hasn't happened in my lifetime yet. So I'm wondering what these people have gone through. I guess I don't have their perspective. I don't know. I try to
more war.
Be empathetic towards all souls, and I don't know what these people have been through. It's not fair for me to judge them in their first little circle.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. Let us know again your quick plugs before we get the fuck out of here, and we'll call it a good one.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first because my Wi-Fi is getting a little choppy. Been cutting out a little bit. So if you guys can hear me, it's Loco Listens podcast or at Loco Listens on Instagram. And please join me on Telegram for some fun times. Loco Listeners on Telegram. I'll see you guys there. Thank you for having me once again.
Of course, dude.
Of course,
Shane.
thank you.
If anybody wants to find me, I'm across all streaming platforms. Like I said in the beginning, almost any of them you look up, I'm sure you'll find Inquiries of Our Reality. A little bit easier. I usually use Instagram more so than anything. So if you're looking for me on there, it's just Inquiries of Our Reality. But if you want all my other links, Linktree, like I was saying, linktr.ee, no.com, and then / Inquiries of Our Reality podcast.
Perfect. Thanks,
Awesome.
you guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, everybody in the live chat, all the free Barnacle audio listeners. We love you, too. And we hit 100 Telegram people. That was what we were trying to do last time. So come join our Telegram, too. Loco's in there.
Nice.
Shane's there. Yeah, you're both in there. Yeah.
Send your memes.
Yeah, send your memes. Chance. Always. Piss and love to everybody.
Piss.
All right, you guys. Have a good night.
Peace.